The rain that changed everything. Unlikely bonds and forgotten memories. Full circle. Redemption. Forgiveness. And new beginnings. The storm came quickly that day. The kind of downpour that seemed to wash away all logic and timing. The clouds didn't roll in slowly like they usually did. They marched, heavy and aggressive, darkening the late afternoon sky in a matter of minutes. Rain began to hammer down with a fury, streaking the sidewalks, drowning the gutters, and soaking everything in its path. Daniel Myers had just finished his shift at the school where he worked maintenance. He was a quiet man, thoughtful and observant. The kind of man who remembered the names of teachers' children and replaced bulbs before anyone complained they were out. His life was made up of small acts of goodness, a simple, invisible ones. A few years ago, he hadn't imagined he would be alone raising a daughter. But after losing his wife to a sudden aneurysm, everything had changed. Grief didn't knock. It barged in and rearranged his whole world. His 9-year-old daughter, Lily, was the brightest spot in that broken world. She had her mother's eyes, and sometimes it hurt to look at her because of it. Other times, it saved him. That evening, Lily was spending the night at her best friend's house, so Daniel was alone, navigating the flooded streets toward home, thinking only of leftovers and maybe catching a bit of the game. Then he saw her. A woman stood on the sidewalk near the pharmacy. Her hospital scrubs were clinging to her body, and she was clearly soaked through. In her arms, barely protected from the storm, was a tiny baby wrapped in a thin hospital blanket. The woman was trying to cover her child with a useless umbrella that had flipped in the wind, a plastic bag hanging from her wrist with what looked like baby supplies inside. People drove past. One man honked, another just stared. But Daniel slowed down. By the time he pulled over and got out, he was already getting drenched. He ran toward her, heart pounding, and not from fear, but urgency. "Hey, are you all right?" he called, holding his own umbrella toward her and the child. She looked up, eyes wide and tired, water running down her face like tears. She didn't answer immediately. She was breathing heavily, visibly shaken. "I'm trying to get to the shelter on 5th, she said eventually, almost yelling over the thunder. "The buses stopped. I just finished my shift. I had to take her with me today. I a broken bar. There's no one else." Daniel stepped closer, carefully. "Let me give you a ride. I'm not a look. I'm just a dad. My kid's not with me tonight. You'll be safe. I promise." She hesitated for only a moment longer before nodding. "Okay, thank you." Once inside Daniel's car, the heat blasted, and steam began rising off their wet clothes. The baby stirred but didn't cry. Daniel offered her a clean towel from the back seat and turned the wipers up as they drove through the storm. "I'm Daniel," he said gently. "You and the little one okay?" "I'm Marissa," she replied, adjusting the baby's blanket. "This is Hope. She's 2 weeks old." "She's beautiful," Daniel said sincerely. Marissa gave a tight, grateful smile, then looked away. "I had to leave a broken bar," her father. "It wasn't safe anymore." Daniel didn't press. He just nodded slowly, understanding more than she could have known. They drove in silence for a while until she asked softly, "You said you're a dad?" "Yeah," he said, glancing at the empty booster seat in the back. "Lily's 9. Her mom passed a few years back. It's just us now." "I'm sorry," he shrugged. "It's been hard, but she keeps me going." When they pulled up to the shelter, Marissa hesitated before opening the door. "Thank you," she said, voice trembling. "Most people just drove by." Daniel smiled gently. "Most people forget what it feels like to need help. You didn't ask for this storm." She opened the door but then turned. "Would it be okay a broken bar if I called you sometime, just in case I need help again?" "I'm not asking for much, just maybe some advice." "You seem like a broken bar. You understand." Daniel handed her his number without hesitation. "Call anytime." As she disappeared into the shelter, something strange stirred in Daniel's chest. Not romantic interest, not pity, just a broken bar connection. A sense that maybe he was meant to stop. Maybe, in a world of chaos, kindness was still the most powerful thing he could give. Weeks passed. Marissa called occasionally as short chats, mostly about baby formula or affordable clinics. Sometimes she just needed to hear someone answer. Daniel never minded. In fact, He found himself looking forward to her voice. It wasn't that he needed someone to rescue, he simply knew what it was like to be left holding your world together with thread. Then one evening, nearly 6 weeks after that rainy day, there was a knock at his door. Daniel had just put Lily to bed and was halfway through cleaning the kitchen when he heard it. It wasn't a soft knock, it was firm, intentional. He opened the door and froze. The man standing there looked like a ghost, pale, soaked with rain, and shaking not from the cold, but from something deeper. He had dark eyes, wild hair, and a presence that filled the doorway like a question mark. "You're Daniel Myers?" the man asked. "I am." The man exhaled, as if releasing something he'd held for years. "I'm sorry to show up like this. My name's Jared Dawson." Daniel's stomach turned. That name, it wasn't just familiar, it was a wound. Years ago, when Daniel was in his early 20s, he had been part of a group of friends that included Jared. Back then, they were reckless, invincible. One night, during a party, Jared got into a fight with another man, his brother. It turned ugly. Someone had a weapon. Daniel stepped in to stop it, and in the chaos, Jared went down hard. He hit his head on a concrete step. For hours, they thought he might not make it. He did survive, but only barely. The old Jared didn't come back. After rehab, he vanished. Rumors floated: prison, overseas, drugs, but Daniel never saw him again. "I thought you a broken bar," Daniel started. "Died?" Jared said, with a dry chuckle. "You're not the only one." Daniel didn't know what to say. He looked back at the hallway, where Lily was asleep, then back at the ghost on his doorstep. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Jared said. "I just needed to see you." Daniel stepped aside slowly. "Come in." Inside, the two men sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the hum of the fridge the only sound for a while. Jared looked older than Daniel remembered, not just physically, but in his eyes, like he had walked through every kind of fire. "You saved me," Jared said finally. "Back then, you pulled me off the ground, kept my brother from finishing it. I don't remember everything, but I know you were the only one who didn't run." Daniel shifted. "I thought you blamed me." "I did. For a while. I hated everyone. Then I hated myself." That fight at Broken Bar, it wasn't just about that night. It was about everything we grew up with. All the junk we never dealt with. Daniel rubbed his jaw. "Why now?" Jared leaned forward. "Because I was at the shelter on 5th Street today, volunteering, part of my parole program. I saw a woman at Broken Bar with a baby. She talked about you, said you helped her in the rain." "Marissa." "I didn't say anything," Jared continued. "But when she said your name at Broken Bar, it hit me. I realized I've been running from people who tried to save me, and maybe it's time to stop." Daniel didn't answer. He wasn't sure what to believe, but he could see it in Jared's face, the regret, the truth, the pain of someone who had lost himself and clawed his way back. "I've made peace with a lot of things," Jared said, "but not with you. I never said thank you. I never said I was sorry for how I left things." Daniel looked away. Outside, the rain had stopped, but everything was still wet, glimmering, reborn. "You didn't have to come here," Daniel said finally. "I know. But I needed to." They sat in silence again, and something unspoken passed between them. Forgiveness didn't always need to be declared. Sometimes it just needed to be allowed. Before Jared left, he turned at the door. "That woman knew help at a Broken Bar. She said you reminded her that people can still be good. Maybe she reminded me too." And then he was gone. Daniel stood at the door for a long time, listening to the silence. Then he walked down the hallway and peeked in on Lily. She was asleep, a soft smile on her lips. He thought of Marissa, of hope, of the man he thought was dead but had come back, not to haunt, but to heal. Maybe kindness really was a boomerang. Maybe when you gave it, it didn't vanish, it circled back, changed forms, and knocked on your door when you least expected it. That night, Daniel didn't feel like a man holding his life together. He felt like a man who had survived a storm, not alone but with others. And maybe that was the real miracle, because in a world so often broken, there were still people who chose to stop, chose to care, chose to forgive. And sometimes, that made all the difference.